Okay, we are going to walk through the process of analyzing your data from the NCEI NOAA database and producing a figure that has 3 lines on it that show the annual um, temperatures of mean daily temperature, maximum daily temperature, and minimum daily temperature. So I will start by going back through the process of getting your data downloaded. So there is a link on Canvas to this site, but you can also, if you Google NCEI and NOAA, you should get your, oh, my, let's see, let's do this another way. I want to search it just so you see the link. So it should be your first hit on Google, should be this website. Once you come to this website, you're going to go to products. There's a bunch of links here that we have to follow through. So we're going to go to climate monitoring and we'll go to temperature products. And then we're going to go to the very bottom of this page and select daily weather records. All right, and then on this page, we're going to click this mapping tool on the top right side of the page. And then on the right-hand side of this page, under the climate monitoring section, we're going to click on daily observations. Okay, so here's a map of the United States with all the available weather stations. You have been assigned a particular city, and you need to find the data from the airport of that particular city. So I'm going to do Denver just because I didn't assign that to anyone, and I'm a little familiar with it, or familiar with the data, I should say. Um, So I know that this is the airport, but for you, like if you were doing Denver, you've got lots of weather stations here you have to look through to find which one's the airport. So one way you could do that is you open another map, like open Google Maps or some other map app, and look for the city. You know, it'll indicate where the airport is, and that will help you figure out which station might be the airport. But if you click on this toolbar here, so the wrench, and then click on the identity tool, then when you click on one of these weather stations, it'll give you information about it, including the name. So I'm going to click on this symbol here that's at the Denver airport. And if you look over to the left, it switched from the layers tab over to a results tab. And here's the name of that weather station. And then the other important aspect here is that the period of record shows up. So how many years of data this weather station has. In order to find the airport, you're going to be looking for something that says international airport in it or field, something field. There's a couple cities I assigned where the airport, it wasn't called the airport, it was something field. So look for one of those 2 keywords to find the airport. If you have trouble, let me know. We'll help you find it. Once you find the data for the airport, um, the other thing to do is make sure that the data record is at least 15 years long. And if it's the airport, it should be giving you like up-to-date data, at least within the last couple of days. So that's another sign that you may or may not have the airport data. But again, make sure you've got at least 15 years because that's part of the assignment. Click on that weather station and add it to your cart. And then there's a couple options here that we need to go through. Select output format. We're going to select a CSV file, which is a comma delimited file, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then we need to select the data range. And for this, you want to make sure that your dates include full years of data. So for example, right now, by default, it's only going to give me data from the current year, which is not a full year of data. It's only 25 days of data. So I don't even want any data from 2022 because, again, I want full years of data. So I'm going to click on the little calendar. If I go all the way back to the first year of data, 1994, and then I click on the month to go to January, you'll notice it doesn't have January as an option. That means it started collecting in July. So because that's not a full year of data, I also don't want anything from 94. So I'm going to jump to 95. That'll let me pick January. So I'm hoping there'll be a full year of data in January or in 1995. And then on the second one where the data ends, I'm going to go back to 2021 and select December 31st and then click apply. And then it's just telling you a little bit of a summary of that data. We're going to click continue. Oops, sorry about that. I think that messed up. I'm gonna shoot. Let me go back and continue. There should be more options there. Oh, I guess I'm moving a little too fast for my computer. Okay, so this should be the second page of options. The top one, you can see station name is clicked. Go ahead and also click geographic information or location and include data flags. And then really importantly is changing the units to metric. Do not leave those in standard units or else your data won't look right. And then you might have a different number of options down here for the variables or the data types that you can get. For this particular assignment, we only need air temperature. So just click on the air temperature one. And if you expand this, it should tell you that you have three variables, T average, T max, and T min. And that's what we want, all three of those. Click continue. And then it's just going to give you a summary of your data. And then down here, my address is it's already being remembered, but enter your email address and verify your email address and then click submit order. I'm not going to click submit order because I already have this data, but once you do that, you'll get an email confirming that you placed the order. And then usually it's within, a few minutes to maybe 30 minutes later, you'll get a second email that has a link to the data in it. In that second email, there will be a download link. When you click that download link, one of usually three things is going to happen. So basically, you're going to get that data in one of three ways. One is it's going to automatically download a CSV file and put it in your downloads folder. And we'll go through the steps of opening that in just a second. I've had computers where when you click on it, it downloads it and automatically opens it in Excel. And if that happens, that's great. Thirdly, you might click on it and it might open a new page and look something like this. And this is actually a raw CSV file. So remember, CSV stands for comma delimited. And if we look at the top row here on the page, this is like our header row in Excel. You can see you've got station, name, latitude, longitude, elevation, all of those things. So each one of those headers or names is the name of a different column, and you can see they're separated by commas. So that's where the comma delimited comes in. When we open this in Excel, Excel often knows that it's a CSV file. It can recognize it, and so it'll separate all of those columns out based on where those commas are. It doesn't always work that easily, but hopefully it will for you. If you're in this situation where it opened a new web page with all of the data, what I want you to do is actually, hold on, let me open Excel. So I'm going to go ahead and open an Excel sheet to be ready to paste this data. So let's give that a second. Okay. So come back to your web page and then you're going to select all. So if you're on a Mac, that's going to be Command A. If you're on a PC, I think it's Control A, and that should select everything on that page. And then you're going to copy it. And then we're going to go to Excel and just in that top left cell, go ahead and paste. And because it's a fairly large data set, it might take a little bit, but then it's pasted it in. Okay, so what we have now is because we copied and pasted it in, Excel doesn't know that this was a CSV file. And so it's pasted everything into column A. So all of our data is in just one column. If I make column A really wide, you'll see everything is in that column. So we now need to go back and tell Excel, hey, what we pasted is actually comma delimited, and so can you please separate it? Because we need to be really polite with Excel. This situation where all of your data is in one column could happen if you downloaded the CSV file and double clicked it to open it. Sometimes if Excel doesn't recognize it's a CSV file, it'll do this same thing. So if you've ended up in the same situation from a different route than what I just did, um, this will also work for you. So what I've got right now is just column A where all of our information is pasted. I've got that whole column highlighted just by clicking the A. And then we're going to go to the data tab. And on the data tab, there's a text to columns option over here towards the right. Click that. By default, it'll probably say fixed width, but we want delimited because it's comma delimited. So click delimited, go to next. By default, the tab option is going to be selected. You can leave that, but we're going to also add the comma delimited, and then just click finish. And now our data, at least for the most part, will be in separate columns. There's a few exceptions. If you look at some of the attribute columns, the attribute columns are the data flags. So you can see the attribute columns still have multiple characters in them with some commas. And here's the precip attributes. Even though I didn't ask for a precip, it gave it to me. And so don't worry about those right now. We'll use those attributes in the next assignment. But you can see our T average column is looking okay, our T max is okay, and our T min are okay. All right. So hopefully you can all get to here. Many of you probably just double clicked on that CSV file and it opened up and looked much like this. And so you're in good shape. Okay, first thing before we move on, we want to save this file as an Excel file. So when you open the CSV file, and if you were to click save, Excel's just going to save it as a CSV. The problem with that is in a CSV file, it can't save multiple worksheets, it can't save formulas, and it can't save figures. So if you do a bunch of calculations and moving stuff to new worksheets and creating a figure and save it in a CSV file, all of your work will be gone. So right now, go to File, Save As, and then somewhere on your computer, will you remember it? I'm just going to call this example, if I can type. Oops, nope. I want it as an, I don't need to put the extension, sorry. Down here under File Format, make sure it's XLS or XLSX. Sometimes if your file is already a CSV file, Excel will by default try to save it as a CSV. So you might have to go to this drop-down menu and find an Excel workbook file type. Once you have that selected, hit save, and now all of your work should be saved. Okay, one other thing before we get started with the actual calculations is I think it's a really good practice to once you have your data in Excel is to have one sheet where you don't touch that data. And I'm going to rename that sheet. You can see me at the bottom renaming it to raw. So this is kind of like our raw data that we put in here. And we want to leave it untouched in case we like accidentally delete something or screw something up down the road. We always can come back to this data set. We don't have to go download it again. But now in this raw worksheet, I'm going to highlight everything by clicking in this little square at the upper left-hand corner. It's going to select everything in the sheet, and I'm going to copy that and paste it to a new sheet. All right, now we can start doing a little bit of work. So first of all, let's look at my T average column, which is column M. And you can see I've got two values and then a bunch of blanks. So before you assume you've only got two data points and everything else is missing, go ahead and scroll down if you're in this situation or a similar situation and just see if you've got data anywhere. And I know you can see somewhere in 1998, I think, or 97, the T average data starts showing up. So I'm missing some years of data, but it does show up and I'll be able to do some calculations with it. So for this particular assignment, if you're missing some data, but it eventually kicks in and shows up. Just go ahead and do your calculations. And most airports have pretty complete data sets, so I don't think any of you will have a problem. Okay, now we're going to calculate annual averages. Um, and we have a date column, so we know which year is which. The problem is if we leave it in this date format, it's really hard to work with and summarize by annual or monthly averages. In the next assignment, we'll do monthly. So we're going to create two new columns. One of them will be just the month and another one just the year. So I'm going to highlight the two columns next to the date column, and then I'm going to go to the Home tab, and then over to the right, somewhere on your toolbar, there should be an insert option. So I'm going to insert cells. So it's going to insert two new rows or columns, sorry. And then I'm going to call 1 month, 1 year. So to get the year, so basically we're going to extract the month, not the year, we'll do the month first. We're going to extract the month from our date column, column F. And the way we do that is we're going to use a function called month. So if we type an equal sign indicating we're going to use a function, um, type the word month in opening parentheses, and then just click on that first cell in the date column, put a closing parentheses and hit enter. What you'll see is it still looks like a normal date format, and we don't want it in that format because it's just not going to work. If you go to the toolbar on the top, you can see in the middle here, there's this little drop-down menu, and it currently says date. That's the format of the cell. We want to click that drop-down menu and select general. And once we do that, then we get a number that's just the month, all right? And then we have to fill this in the whole column. You could click and drag it all the way down, but that's going to take a little time. What you can do is if you hover over the little green square in the bottom right-hand corner of the selected cell, your icon will change, double click it, and then it will fill in that whole cell. And then for year, we do about the same thing, an equal sign, type the word year, opening parentheses, click on that first date cell, again, change the format to general, and fill that in. Okay, so okay, I had to take a little break there, get my child off to school, and so I'm back, and now we can do some calculations on our data set. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is we're going to use um, a function called the subtotals function. Um, and what the subtotals function does is it will calculate the subtotals of a particular column based on some other column. So what we're going to do is we're going to calculate the average temperature based on the year column. So we're going to tell it to give us the averages for each year. And I know I've got my, let me close my mail real quick so it's stop popping up. Okay, so um, under the data tab at the top, to your right, somewhere on that toolbar should be a subtotals option. If you click that subtotals, um, let's hit cancel. I'm gonna unclick out of that uh, column that I had clicked. So I'm just on a single cell and then go back and hit subtotals. Okay, it's not happy with me. Some versions of Excel seem more flexible than others. Let's just go ahead and highlight the whole worksheet and do a subtotals function. And the first option here at each change in, we're going to select year because we want to average it by year. And we want the averages, not a count. And then lastly, we want the annual averages for T average, T max, and T min. So once we have those three variables selected, we're going to hit OK. And what's going to happen is you'll see on the very left-hand side of your screen, you'll have three layers now show up. Layer 3 is basically the raw data or all of the rows of data. So this is the daily data. And then if you click on the 2 for layer 2, what you'll see is your subtotals. And so that gives you the average values and shows you what year. And actually, I want to go back. Sorry about this. Let's calculate while our whole sheet is highlighted. Let's go to the subtotals again. And I forgot when I do this, I like to also select the year. So go ahead and add the year to it and then rerun the subtotals function and click on layer 2 again. That way it gives us a nice column that we can use for plotting. Okay. You can see at the very bottom, it also calculates the grand average of all the data, and that's also shown on layer 1. But we're going to ignore that for now. We're going to use layer 2. Now, here's the tricky thing about Excel. Even though we're looking at the subtotals right now, we're only, Excel's just kind of getting rid of all of the daily data for us and showing us the subtotals. But that daily data is still in this worksheet. So if we were to just highlight this data, copy and paste it, it wouldn't just paste the subtotals, it would paste all the daily data as well. So what we have to do to copy and paste just the subtotals is highlight the data that you want to copy. We're going to go to our home screen, our home tab, find the or locate the find and select option and click the drop down menu. And we're going to go to special and we're going to select visible cells only, hit OK. Now it's just going to highlight those rows where our subtotals are. We're going to copy that and let's paste it onto a new worksheet. Now we're working with just the subtotals and we don't have the daily data kind of hidden in between. So this is what we're going to use to actually create our plot. First thing we have to do though is take care of these error messages in the T average column. So you can see this, the number sign, the div, divide 0, exclamation point. That's a divide by 0 error. And generally what that means is there was no data in that particular year or whatever subtotal you're using. Um, so you can, first of all, we can see I had a lot of missing data in this particular data set. If you have that, that's okay for now. All right. We're just working through the calculations and the mechanics of it. We're not too worried about how much data is actually there or missing. All right. So the easiest way to get rid of these is just to delete them and leave the cell blank. But this is likely going to happen for some of you on the next assignment. And on the next assignment, these divide by zeros are going to happen when we have a much bigger data set and you don't necessarily, you can't go through line by line and delete them. It would just take forever. So I'll show you another way to do it. If we highlight this row and we're going to go back to this find and select option, click the drop down menu and let's click replace. So it's going to ask you, what you want to find. So we're going to type in that error message. So it's a pound sign, capital D, capital I, capital V. It's the divide symbol, 0, and an exclamation point. And then for replace, just leave it completely blank because we want to replace it with an empty cell and just click replace all. And you see it gets done, it just gets rid of all of those error messages. If you leave those in there, your plot is going to look really weird. So we just want to get rid of them. Okay, now we can go ahead and plot up the data. So what I would like to do, let's say I'm going to put the figure down here, and we're going to go to the Insert tab at the top, and where it shows a bunch of figures here, we're going to select the line plot for this one. And now I'm going to select one of the line plots that has the symbols on it as well, and that just kind of helps highlight each year of data. And notice that I didn't have any cells selected when I did this. I like to start with a blank figure. If you have some of the cells highlighted or some of the columns highlighted, you can do that. The problem I run into is with Excel tries to guess how you want that data organized on the figure, and it doesn't always get it right. So I just generally start with a blank slate, so to speak. Okay, so I've got the chart selected. On the top, the toolbars here, I'm on the chart design tab, and you can see there's a select data option. So I'm going to select data. I'm going to leave the chart data range blank, but here I don't have a data series selected, so nothing to plot. So I'm going to add one, and I'm going to call it the annual mean daily temperature. And then I select this little icon on the right hand side of the Y values box. And now it's just going to let you, or it's waiting for you to select the data you want to plot. So I'm just going to select all the data in the T average column and then click on that little icon again. And it's created that time series. And then for the horizontal axis, we're going to click that icon again, and we're going to select that year column we created. You can click the icon again. You can also just hit enter and it will go back. All right, so now I've got one data series. Let's just hit OK so we see that. All right, so we've got one data. We know we've got some missing data, so the line, there's a break in a line, but that's okay for now. All right, let's go back to select data. We need to add two more series to this. So we're going to add another one, which is the annual maximum daily temperature, and then select our maximum values. I just hit enter there. I'm going to add one more, which is going to be our annual minimum. And the names I'm giving these data series are what are the names that's going to show up in the legend. So you want to make sure these make sense, and anybody viewing your data can tell what you were talking about. For those two data series we added, we don't need to add the horizontal axis since we added it for that first time series or data series. Okay, so now we've got three different data series on the plot. So in the next assignment, we'll do two, but now you know how to do multiple data series on the same plot. Okay, first things that I notice is that our horizontal labels are kind of in the middle of our plot. By default, Excel puts them at 0. And sometimes if your data goes below 0, then your legend or those labels get in the way. So let's go ahead and move those. If you hover over on the y-axis somewhere and you double click, there should be a formatting tab that opens to the right. If it's not automatically selected, you want to select the bar tab here. And if you go down a little bit, you see this section called horizontal axis crosses, and it's automatically going to select 0. We want to tell it what axis value we want. So click the axis value, and I'm just going to look at my y-axis and notice that my smallest number is -10. So I'm just going to type in -10 over here in this axis value option box, hit tab, and then it should move those labels down. Okay, now just a few formatting things for our figure before we're done. We need to add a few chart elements. And so at the top left, there's an add chart element section. Let's click on that drop down menu. Let's first add our legend, and we can add it wherever. I'm going to put it at the right so I have room at the top for a title. And you can see the names we gave those data series show up here in the legend. Then I'm going to go back to the add chart element. I'm going to add an axis title, and I'll start with doing the primary horizontal axis. And so we have our x-axis, is a time variable, and the units are year. And then let's go back up to add chart element. We're going to add a primary vertical label. So this is going to be air temperature. And then make sure we add units of Celsius. Okay, now before I move on, I'm going to highlight that axis label. At the top, I'm going to go back to my Home tab, And I'm going to increase the font a little bit. So increase it to 14, do the same thing for time so we can see those axis labels a bit better. Okay, one more thing you need to add. So we need to go back to the chart design tab, do add chart element, and we're going to put a chart title on it. So a few things. You need to have your name. You need to have the location, so just do city and state. And then how many years of data. And so I went from 95 through 21. So I believe that's 26 years of data. And that's all you have to put there is 26 years. All right, so that's your title that you need to have on it. You need to have the legend, your axis labels, and make sure that where your horizontal axis labels crosses is at the bottom of the figure, not somewhere in the middle. All right. Okay, so this is the figure you're going to turn in. Now you have to turn in one other thing. You have to turn in a table of how many missing data points you have each year. All right. So to do that, we're going to go back to our second sheet. So remember, on our second sheet, we've calculated some subtotals, and you can leave those subtotals selected for now or leave them in the sheet. But let's highlight the entire sheet again by clicking in that corner square button. There's got to be some name for it. I don't know what it is. I should learn that. Okay, let's go back to our data tab. We're going to go back to subtotals. And so here we're going to leave it at each change in year. We're going to count numbers. So every time, what this function does is every time there's a number in a cell, it just counts in sequence. And so what it's going to tell us is how many data points we have for each year. And then from that, we can calculate how many missing data points we have. For this particular one, we don't need the year. You could leave it, but we don't need it. But we leave our T average, T max, and T min in place. And then click OK. So it's done it again. I'm going to go back to my second layer and look at that. All right, so now we have all of the data for each year, or how many data points we have for each year. So let's do this. We're going to select everything like we did before. And remember, it's got all of the daily values in between. So we need to go back to our Home tab, go to Find and Select, go to Special and Visible Cells Only. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to put it back in Sheet 3. Over to the right, I'll paste this. All right, now these are the number of data points we have. We want missing. So I'm going to create 3 new column headers. Missing T average data, missing T max data, and missing T min data. And then for this first one, at least, we're going to just type in a new formula. So we're going to do equals 365, which is how many data points it should have in a normal year. And then we're going to subtract how many data points it does have. So now that just calculates how many missing data points we have. And then I'm going to do the same thing for max. So 365 minus that column, and then this column. All right. So that tells me how many missing data points I have for each variable in 1995. Now, I'm just going to drag this down for sake of time. But the problem with dragging it down is you're missing all the leap years, right? Where there's actually 366 days. So you need to go through and make sure that on the leap years, your formula has 366 minus the available data instead of 365, all right? So make sure you do that. But then once you have this table completed, this tells us how many missing data points we have in each year. You're going to copy and paste this onto the same sheet that your figure's on, print that off, and bring that with you to lab. So what I would recommend doing is just copying this table, pasting it into a Word document, then copying our figure, there it is, copy and paste your figure into that same Word document and print that off. Bring that with you to class, and you're done with this assignment.